Hello friends, welcome back to the bench. Our patient is a Tribeca AK12A. Tribeca with H6 engine, double overhead, which misfires. So we're gonna do IC608 job on this one. A lot of IC608s lately. And I actually had two that I replaced the chip, meaning I sent it to the customer, and there were still issues. So I have those here. I have to test them on my car, see if they're actually culprits, because it very rarely happens. Actually, I have never actually confirmed the faulty IC608. It's always the soldering, and typically when when the ECM comes back with the same issue, it is more often than not just my fault of I didn't solder it correctly. That doesn't really happen anymore because I gained a lot of proficiency in this, a lot of experience. So I would think that it's actually faulty chip, but we'll see. We'll see once we receive feedback from the customers that had their chips replaced. Because even if if you replace the chip and the problem goes away, well, there's still a question. Maybe you messed up the soldering on the first one, right? So that alone doesn't really confirm that. The only way to confirm is to solder this chip onto my ECM or one of my ECMs and put it in my car. See if it misfires. If it doesn't, then that must have been soldering issue, or there's some other, because if the replacement now won't help, that means there is an issue with the ECM, in which case I'll just replace the whole ECM. Luckily I have, because both issues were on 86A, and I have like 2 or 3 in stock of these, so I can replace it, no problem. Anyways, while we're doing this boring procedure, let's talk about some triggering subjects, shall we? Yeah, the title of my rant is taking bad advice, actually taking advice in general, or knowing how to take advice. My grandma, may she rest in peace, always used to tell me that whenever you have to make a decision, whatever you have to do, always ask around, like everybody around you, what they would do, or framing it as what should I do, right? Ask everyone around you and then do what you think is right. Basically get this free feedback from everybody, like see what everyone else around you would do. But don't just take their advice, just that way you make more informed decision, right? Or at least that is the theory. Because when you do take advice and it turns out to be a bad decision that you made, who are you going to blame? Are you going to blame the person you took advice from, or are you going to blame yourself? You're probably familiar with Boogie 2988, the OG YouTuber, right? When he lost everything, because obviously he doesn't make good financial decisions. What I heard being prominent in his breakdown of what happened was he took a bad advice from a friend. like basically throwing his friend under the bus. That yeah, everything would have been great if it wasn't for that advice, right? So it's my friend's fault, not mine. They gave me an advice. I took it and it didn't work, so it's their fault. You're not gonna go far using that logic, you know? I'm in favor of accountability, you know? Oh, come on. Maybe the feedback you should get from that is like, maybe I shouldn't be taking advice from people, and especially if you're such a person that blames people that advised you on whatever, then maybe you shouldn't take advice in general. Alright, because it's frustrating if you know where the problem was and the problem was out of your control. Well, maybe next time just be in control, right? Maybe next time it should be your decision. But that is a trait of that is a narcissistic trait, right? I'm not saying that everyone who does that is a narcissist, but it is definitely a narcissistic trait when you blame people around you, right? Even for your own actions. But you will always take credit for when something's good, then you take credit for it. But when it's bad, it's whoever gave you the advice, right? That is a bad trait. But, you know, as I said, that by itself doesn't make you a narcissist. And I do believe we all have some narcissistic traits in one way or another. After all, we are all to some extent selfish, you know, because it's us, right? You are the main character of your own movie, right? Even if objectively you're not, in your own mind, in your own brain, you are the most important person, because if you stop existing, the movie ends. At least subjectively, the movie ends. So you are the main character in, you know, in your own story. Nothing wrong with that fundamentally, but if you take it too far, you might become a full-blown narcissist, you know. But my point is accountability. And you know what? I don't want you walking away from this video thinking that I victim shame or victim blame when bad stuff happens, because you might have that impression after I tell you what I'm about to tell you, you know. But because taking accountability might seem like, you know, I'm blaming the victim, right? Something bad happened and I say, you know, you are partially to blame because you put yourself in that position, right? Which doesn't mean that what happened to you is justified in any way, but still, you know, if you just find faults in everyone around you, and that's your only takeaway, you see no fault of your own, that's not healthy. So from time to time, it's good that we are reminded that there is something we could have done, or something that we did that put us in the position where we were wronged, right? That still doesn't take away the wrongness of what happened to us, but it's a little more productive, more constructive if you find your own faults in that situation, Well, obviously on top of the perpetrators being prosecuted. Basically, perpetrators taking also not accountability, just accepting consequences and being basically punished. And the reason it might sound that way, there was a situation in a place where I worked for about a year and a half, maybe something like that. Doesn't really matter what kind of workplace. It's not an office though, right? That's important, because it probably wouldn't have, it would have taken the completely different turn if it was in the office. But it was not. There was a lady that was hired, and it was known, for some reason, I don't know why it was even known, but for some reason it was known that she starred in an adult movie, right? And the owner of the company was, well, let's call it being slightly inappropriate with that. I wasn't there, I only know the situation relayed to me from people that it was relayed to them. So we're just kind of, we don't know exactly what happened, but what we do know is that there were some inappropriate comments from the boss. And I know the boss, and I know how he is, so I can well believe that. He's now in his 50s, he's still not married. He's kind of a player, right? And so the end of the story was that she quit. She had to quit, right? Because it was very uncomfortable for her. You can probably understand why. So when I just kind of review that story, I I work in all kinds of offices, right? So we go through periodically, like 4 times a year, we go through all kinds of training, and depending on the company, different kind of training, right? If you work with money, then you get a lot of training around there. Basically how the conflict of interests, the favorability, right? Like all kinds of concepts that you need to be aware of, that it can't even look, it cannot even be interpreted as, even if you're not doing anything wrong, if it looks bad, it's already bad. You're already you're already breaking the rule, right? Even though you're not actually doing anything wrong, because it looks bad, right? And in addition to that, we have to go through training on harassment in workplace. On it doesn't have to be related to sexual harassment. It can be all kinds of harassment, basically making the workplace not great to be in, right? Like for example, if you said something and someone got offended and you say, well, it was a joke, well, it doesn't matter. That was still a harassment. That's the way it works. And the main reason companies do that is to, if that actually does happen, then you are responsible. You take the liability, not the company, because the company did everything that the company could to prevent that situation from happening. So that's one of the reasons why they do it. That's not the only reason, of course, but that's one of the reasons why they do that. So my point is that I have to go through all that training. So if I were in that situation, I would advise the lady to just sue the company, because she would have won. She would have definitely, they would definitely have settled, right? It didn't have to go to court because, understandably, you don't want to actually go through all that because, you know, if you do go through the whole legal process, then, all of that is going to be exposed, your past and how it happened, what exactly happened, and all that. It's going to be even more uncomfortable than the situation itself. So nobody wants to go through that. But obviously the party responsible, the employer, also don't want to go through that process because that's also very bad optics for them. So obviously they would settle, right? Anyways, it's very it's very despicable behavior from the person that actually put the employee in that position. And again, it doesn't matter if you were joking or not joking, whatever. It's just, you don't do that. Not in the workplace. There are laws that protect people just from that. But my point is accountability. Because yes, the lady should seek legal repercussions for the perpetrator. But at some point in her life, she decided that she's gonna star in an adult movie, right? And just like she should not expect a harassment at work, because it's, because it's basically, it's against the law, right? There are actual laws that protect from that. But for the same reason, I could just as well say that, hey, I don't want to work with you. That's my freedom, right? Maybe you being a former adult actress makes me uncomfortable, okay? And it's tough situation for me. Now your existence in the workplace is a form of harassment to me. It just makes me uncomfortable. That could very well be. So when I say accountability, I mean just that. It doesn't. You made that choice at some point of your life. You made a choice that you're gonna do that probably without thinking of consequences, because you were young, maybe in your early 20s, and now you're in your, say, 40s, and now you're paying the price for that, right? You didn't think what was gonna happen 20 years after. So that being said, as much as I support the lady as a victim of harassment, and as much as I think that the perpetrator should have been punished to the fullest extent, the lady should also find that she created that situation. Well, not the situation. She made an easy choice in the past. Okay? By easy choice, I mean, obviously she didn't do it for free, right? So at some point in your life, you had a choice. The times were tough, perhaps, and you had a choice. You're either gonna work really, really hard, and it's gonna suck, or you're gonna take a little shortcut and just, get paid thousands of dollars for 2 hours of work, right? Or maybe you just get some residuals from that appearance. I don't know how it works exactly. Obviously, I've never been in that situation, but it's different for men, you know. um, so at some point, they took an easy way out, and now these are the consequences. All right, it sucks, but some of that is a result of your choices in the past. So I don't know if you agree with me, because as I said, it might look like I'm blaming the victim, right? But the only point I want to make is that this wasn't a clear-cut situation like you're a perfect employee. Uh, you worked really hard and you got a job, and on that job your boss is harassing you. Yeah, there's no fault of yours in any way. You're pure victim, right? There's nothing you did to put yourself in that situation. But in this case, well, you did something in the past that you wish could remain hidden, and no one should say anything about it, or well, you're not taking accountability. Again, I can very well refuse to work with you, and I would be within my rights. When you get hired, depending on wherever you get hired, depending on the type of company, you go through different kind of background checks. The company I work for now, they do very extensive background checks. They even pull up your credits, like obviously they search for any offenders list on SO lists, any criminal history, any delinquency, bankruptcy, any of that. I don't know how much does that impact whether you can work there or not, because my background is clean. So I don't know. Maybe some of that is just for reference. Some of that probably is because we want to avoid such a situation, right? So if you finally found your dream job and you get an offer, then they run background check and they find that you start in adult video movie industry. They might not hire you because of that, because it could be considered, some people might have a problem with that, not want to work with you. And again, are you being harassed, or are you taking just accountability, or are you paying the price for your own actions? I don't know. And it sucks when that happens. Imagine, finally landing that offer, and something like that happens. Your dream job. And again, who are you gonna blame then? Right? Because if you turn around and say that no, that's not fair, that shouldn't be, and it's not my fault, then you learned nothing, and you will learn nothing, and you will never be successful, because everything bad that happens is someone else's fault. That's no way to live. No way to live. I always review such whenever something happens, right? I always review it in that way. What could I have done better? Not really to just finger point and blame myself, but basically actionable items. What can I do? What could I have done to prevent this situation from happening? Right? There was this story, heartbreaking story of a couple, married couple, and that had a kid here in U.S. They're both from, I don't know, South America somewhere, and the kid was born in U.S., so they all lived in U.S., but their legal status was was not legal, right? They didn't have a legal status, and they worked in some meat packing plant, something like that, and ICE raided the place and deported everyone who was not legally staying in the US. Now, it's heartbreaking story because the kid was at school. Like suddenly, no one's gonna pick up this kid from school, right? Because both parents got deported, and they were pleading with ICE, or I think they were called ICE then. I don't know if it's still a thing, but they were pleading that we have a child here. Why you can't do that, right? And again, I'm on a victim blame here. As much as I don't think that should have happened, right? I think that situation should have been resolved in some other way. And maybe they could get, I don't know, they should get some avenue to become at least, residents, right? Because of the kid. That would be a solution that I would suggest. But I look at it as a father myself, and if I were in such situation, first of all, I would not even consider staying in that situation, right? Because every day I would think, like, what if I get deported, right? What's gonna happen to my son if I just suddenly, get deported, and my wife as well, right? I would not I would not even put myself in that situation, and if I found myself in that situation, I would not be blaming the government, because because I would take accountability, right? It's kind of like, using your kid to solve your problems, right? Your immigrational problems, or you feel untouchable because you have a kid in the US, right? And the kid is the citizen. Yeah, but the kid cannot sponsor you yet because the kid is not even an adult, right? So I would just blame myself, basically, because I'm the adult, I'm the father, so I'm responsible. So yeah, as much as it, my heart breaks, and I don't think the situation like this should come to be, right? It shouldn't have happened. Like, I don't know what happened to the kid. Social services picked it up. I don't know. But I'm the adult. It was my decision to remain in the country illegally, and now I'm paying the price. Accountability, nothing more. But the subject was supposed to be taking bad advice. It kind of took us a while to lead to the actual story. The actual story is actually even more heartbreaking than this one. Trigger warning. The lady on the internet, or was it TikTok or YouTube? I think it was YouTube. It really doesn't matter. A lady, single mother, okay? So keep that in mind. Single mother. That already tells you what kind of decisions she makes. Again, I'm gonna victim blame a bit here. Again, single mother, and her YouTube channel was about finding a rich man to marry. And the only reason I know that channel exists is because what happened afterwards. Because she found her rich guy, they got married, and the rich guy turned out to be a, how do I say it in a YouTube friendly way? He committed the worst kind of offense that you can commit, being inappropriate with her daughter. Right? I don't know how old the kid is, but pretty young. And I don't know if she has 2 kids or 1 kid. It really doesn't matter. So obviously she found a man, but she made a horrible choice. And at this point, if that's how you relay the story, there's no fault of her own in this whole situation, right? It was really unlucky to find a man that would do something like that. And I hope he's prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, and our friends on the inside are gonna show him a really, really good time. Because they don't like, in prison, they don't like people like that. This is like the lowest of the low that you can go. So even COs won't help you, right? COs are gonna look the other way while you're getting shanked every week, you know. Surprisingly, the Larry Nassar, was it Nassar? He got shanked after like many years in the. So I think he was in the in PC or in the shoe, and finally, after many years, he finally got shanked. Like I don't remember, like a ridiculous amount of times. I don't know, it was like some 20-30 times, you know, in one jump. And yeah, COs just kind of, we were looking the other way for a second, and there's no cameras in that particular spot, you know. So, you know, don't count if you go there with charges like that. Don't count that anyone's gonna help you or anyone's gonna relate. No, you're on your own, and you're gonna pay very dearly for what you did. But as I said, if you just hear the story like this, then there's no accountability for the woman to take because she hasn't done anything wrong. But since I watched a kind of it was relayed to me by another channel, right? I haven't seen her channel, and I've never heard of her until this situation. But that channel did a little recap of her videos, right? And what struck me as super obvious was how she advised her audience how to find a rich guy, right? How to lock in a rich guy, right? And I don't know if this is straight. So a few clips were played from her videos in which she was advising, And it immediately struck me as like, yeah, what did you what did you expect, basically? That was my takeaway. And so her advice was something like, if kind of, if you're interested in that man, and it did seem shifted. It is way shifted. So, like, don't show that you're interested, right? And the reasoning behind that is that men are like predators, and the predator won't go after a weak prey or something like that. So you wanna be a little challenge to to the man's predatory nature. So first, just using that word predator, it's super ironic because he turned out to be one. But that is objectively false. What world are you living in? Obviously, the predator will go after a weak or wounded because you want to conserve your energy, and the predator will try to isolate such a prey from the herd, right? That's what predators do. That's the MO, and both the metaphorical predators and actual wolves, tigers, what have you, right? That's what they do. They go after a weakling. Not they don't make it the point of honor that that gazelle is too slow. I'm gonna keep chasing that other gazelle that is super fast as a point of honor. Nobody does that. No. I mean, by nobody, I mean no animals do that. So that advice alone, right there, is a bad advice. But what do you expect? You're taking an advice on dating from a single mother. That alone should tell you everything. But what I found, like, particularly dumb in this whole situation is that, first of all, if you create the relationship with someone based on manipulation, like you manipulating someone into being your husband, then what do you think is going to happen? How do you think that's going to go? So that's bad advice number one. Number two, if your future husband actually responds to that, so you show no interest, so he's chasing you, then you found yourself a man who doesn't respect women's autonomy, women's choices. So again, you found yourself a really bad man. You don't want the relationship with that man. So bad advice number two. So, like, everything that I hear her advising other women is like all wrong. Does it work? Maybe, I don't know. Well, apparently it did work for her, right? She did get married with the guy, which I'm sure she regrets dearly now, because the damage has been done. Even if the guy goes to worst prison on this planet, the damage is done. The kid has been damaged, and I blame the mother. I'm sorry. That is because the child is the victim here, not the mother. The mother created the situation. Not only created the situation, but also believes that she's in the position to advise other people how to ruin their lives. And the ironic thing here is that she herself took that advice from the other failed lady on the internet, you know. So in this situation, I only feel for the kid. The kid is the victim here, not the mother. And yeah, I mean, I kind of feel for her as well, and she's, crying on her channel, and why did this happen to me, right? If that's your takeaway, like it's the guy's fault. Obviously, it is, right? There's no way to defend the guy in this situation. But if you're putting the blame on the guy and seeing none of that as your bad choices, then yeah, because look at it from her perspective, as what she was trying to, where were her priorities. Her priorities were to find a man, a rich man, right? A rich man to have an easy life. Her priorities were not to find a good father for her kids, because in my view, that ship has sailed. The replacement father is never going to be a father. And even if he's the best guy in the world, at any point the real father can intrude their relationship, their life, So at this point, it's already, the game is lost. At this point, already. So even if you find a really, really good guy, it's not gonna be a paradise anymore, ever. You already messed up. But now we can try to make the best out of the horrible situation, right? And focus on the kids, not focus on yourself and your own needs. She did the opposite, right? Throughout, she didn't start a channel on how to raise your kids, being a single mom. And don't get me wrong, those family channels, sometimes they're even worse than the worst situations that you've heard of. Sometimes it's the worst kind of abuse to kids on the family channels. And there was a pretty famous case recently, Ruby Frankie, right? Yeah, everything looked good on YouTube, but in reality, kids were in a horrible place. But yeah, her channel was not about her kids. Her channel was about finding a man, have an easy life, and not even finding, manipulating a man into marriage, right? It's horrible. It's a horrible advice. End of story. Purely horrible advice. If anyone gives you an advice on relationships and it involves anything other than honesty, transparency, anything other than that, like any kind of manipulation or something, don't take that advice. It's a horrible advice. It's gonna backfire, and unfortunately in her case it backfired tremendously, and it took and the kids found themselves in a crossfire. So there's multiple victims in this story. Multiple victims. Because your priorities were not in the right place. Well, feel free to disagree with me. Obviously, you know, yeah, I've been out of the game for decades now, right? I've been married for a decade, and I never really was into dating. You know, I was never really uh, uh, a womanizer, or you know. I'm not tall and handsome, so obviously it's not like I've had many women being interested in me in my days. So I was thinking, well, maybe the game has changed so much that this is normal now. But even if it is, even if this is normal now, doesn't make it good. Doesn't mean it should be that way. Even if it is a norm now that everybody's manipulating everybody into relationships, and women only care about your bank account. Because in this situation, I'm thinking that she thought that she was in the driver's seat, right? And she was, but she was behind the wheel of a toy car sitting on the back of the truck of the guy that was driving. You know. So to her, it felt like she was behind the wheel, because she was, in a way. And just that wheel was not connected to anything. Or that wheel was not impacting the direction. And as I said, the worst part in it is that the kids suffer. I hope she takes a good look in the mirror. And I heard she changed her channel's name into something else, and that kind of leaves me with the bad taste in my mouth. Like, what, you're now gonna capitalize on this situation, and now we're gonna start a different channel on something related to this, and that rubs me the wrong way, you know. Maybe it's a harsh judgment, but consequences were harsh, you know. And there's no fixing this situation. You know, that kid's gonna have to go through years of therapy, and years of therapy, and even after years of therapy, there's a good chance she's gonna find herself a bad man, a wrong guy. First, because, you know, being raised by a single mom, that's never a good thing for a woman. Not having a father figure, it's awful for a woman. It's not that bad for men. Not that horrible, but still not good, obviously. But for women especially, you need a father figure in your life. Otherwise you choose wrong man. Because it's your dad. As a woman, your dad is, we have a saying in Poland that when you have a son, you watch your son. If you have a daughter, you watch the whole village. And yeah, your dad is going to scrutinize your boyfriends in a way that you would not. And you're going to learn from your dad how to actually find a valuable man, a candidate for potential husband and father of your kids. I'm sure there are some statistics that would support my opinion here, my point. Like a percentage of, women ending up in divorce or with bad men that did not have a father figure growing up. I don't have it, and I don't have them. So, feel free to disagree with me. Feel free to, to describe my views as extremely conservatives and, like that's not how world works anymore, and I'm stuck in 17th century. Be that as it may, in this situation, we should have seen it from miles away coming. And the bottom line, if you're taking advice from someone, or at least watching a channel on dating and stuff, always see who is the person giving you the advice. I'm not saying you should take your advice regarding dating only from the church or your priest or whatever. I mean, it's probably not it's probably not going to be a bad advice, to be honest. If you take your advice from the pastor, or it's probably going to be especially if the person you're taking advice from is a happy family man or a woman with beautiful family, and at least optics are great. Sure, that's probably gonna be much better advice than the one you'll find on YouTube from single moms. But just always scrutinize the person giving you the advice, and if you will, take my grandma's advice and just ask everyone around what they would do, or what should you do, and then do what you think is right. And that way you don't have to blame anyone other than yourself should the worst happen. Plain and simple. All right, kind of a heavy subject for a Sunday morning. Sorry about that, but I didn't really have a better idea for a subject. So that's what we get. Well, on a high note, I received a order from AliExpress with sockets AM5 1200 1151. So we're gonna do the redo of the of the motherboard's socket replacements. That's gonna be fun. Can't wait. Well, in any case, thank you guys very much for watching. Oh, it's been over 50 minutes. That was a long rant. If you made it to the end, thank you very much. I do appreciate you. And I shall see you in the next one.